City Council meeting to order. It is Tuesday, December the 17th, 2024 at 7 p.m. Melissa, could you do a roll call, please?
Keller.
Here.
Hedges.
Here.
Tice.
Here.
Klitzka.
Here.
Hallinan.
Absent.
Moats.
Here.
Lukasak.
Here.
Duval.
Absent. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father,
Who art in heaven,
Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever.
Amen. Council, you should have received a copy of two sets of minutes. The first one was from our regular council meeting on December the 3rd, 2024. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? If there is none, is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve by Sherry Tice, seconded by John Moats. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. The second set of minutes was from the special council meeting on December the 10th. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Not, is there a motion? Motion to approve by Sherry Tice, seconded by Tom Klitzka. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Those minutes will stand as are written. Reports from council members or committee reports. Does any council member have a report this evening? No? Tom?
Yes, sir.
Judicial Committee Chairperson?
Yes, just to let everyone know that we will not have a judicial committee meeting on Thursday, the 19th. The next judicial meeting will be Tuesday evening, January 14th, sir.
Great, thank you very much, Tom. Anyone else? Okay. Reports of city officials that are here tonight as council's guests. We have the auditor, law director, and mayor. Mark, do you have a report?
I do not.
Okay. Kendra, do you have a report?
Yes, just wanted to give council an update on November's numbers because I did not have those ready at the last meeting. So it looks like regarding my office, we opened 89 cases, we closed 88. There were 40 officer notifications that went out, 81 subpoenas, and we answered 79 discovery demands. Wanted to call council's attention to the city's Facebook page as well as online, and I think eventually it will make it to your water bills. My office and Jen worked with Craig Puckett to rework the backflow policy updates for his position in his department. So you will see a copy of those posted online. If you want to familiarize yourself with those will go into effect in January of 2025. So we wanted to put that out there that it's the first of many, hopefully, to come out with policy updates and updated information. So we're working to get those areas addressed. And then just a couple of additional things. My office had the opportunity and being able to swear in Sergeant Ryan Mays of the Circleville Police Department last week, as well as our brand new cadet now officer, Paige Coleman. So again, police department is kind of restructurizing, obviously adding new officers and new sergeants. So that was an opportunity. I know some of you were able to attend. So we keep moving forward on some of the many recommendations that were made by Paul Pride at the council meeting within the last 30 days. So that's all I have.
Great, thank you, Kendra. Mayor Michelle Blanton.
Thank you, President Keller. Just a few things. First, Friday, I had the opportunity to attend the Wingate celebration of 8 years in the community. They are assisted living and independent living. Their independent living is completely full. They are fully decorated for Christmas. So if you want to drive out there and drive around and see the decorations that they have, I know that they would appreciate that. Stop in, see the resident director and their staff. They have some capacity in their assisted living, but they are at full capacity at independent living. It was a good opportunity to be there. Former Mayor Don McElroy was there, and we got to speak a little bit about this. He got to speak about the story of how Wingate came, and then we heard from testimonials from the families of people who have had residents at Wingate. It was a great time. Today, we started preliminary budget review meetings for 2025 with the departments to get an understanding of what's in there. So as we begin the new year, we can continue conversations with council regarding cuts for 25 and preparations for 26. This evening, you will hear a communications consultant report from Steve Thompson of Thompson Creative Services, who will be speaking to you this evening. We also have 2 students from Logan Elm High School here this evening. They are guests of myself and Mr. Chuck Reisinger, who works with Pickway Works. And so they are here to learn about council and the mayor's office and communications. And so I felt that this was a good meeting for them to come to. Lastly, I just want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. To all of our citizens, please have a happy and safe New Year, as this is our last meeting before the new year. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. Council, have any questions for the elected officials here tonight? No? All right. Thank you. Would anybody like to address City Council this evening? This is a chance for the public to address City Council. If so, you can come to the podium. No one? Melissa, do we have any communications?
Yeah, council received a notification to the legislative authority that the Racetrack Inc. has applied for a liquor permit. Council must notify within 30 days from the mail date if they object or like a hearing, or they can ask for a one-time only 30-day extension.
Anything else?
No.
All right. Council, can I have a motion to place that on file? So moved by Katie Hedges, seconded by Sherry Tice. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that brings us to the business portion of tonight's meeting. We have one piece of legislation, so Melissa, go right ahead.
An ordinance amending section 135.01, 135.03, 135.04, 135.11, 135.13A, and 135.13G, establishing section 135.15 and repealing section 135.07 of the codified ordinances of the city of Circleville and declaring an emergency.
Council, you've heard the first reading of this ordinance that came from the Safety Committee. Anyone available to speak on that? Katie?
Sure. This came from a recommendation to basically provide a new composition for the police department. It was one of the recommendations from Paul Pride, the consultant that council hired. We heard from Chief Fisher at the meeting. He felt like this was a good new structure. It provides a little bit more lateral oversight. And it also allows for a very clear path forward of progression for officers and the like within the department. So it did come out of our committee with a recommendation for passage.
Great, thank you. Is there any other questions or comment? Sure.
I have a question. I did sit down with Paul Pride and discuss this, but I think that was before Pumpkin Show. It seems like it was a while back, so I don't remember all the details. And I looked at it, on the email that came through. Can you tell me, Katie, what are the duties of the communications supervisor? That's the position that's being added. Is that
Can
correct?
you speak? Well, one of the big, really the biggest change, I would say, and I'm interested what you think, Val, but I think the biggest change is it gets rid of the deputy chief's position and adds 2 captains
Yes.
underneath. So I identify that as the biggest change, but
So I can speak to that if and then obviously HR is here, but we've always had a communications supervisor within the union in of itself. The position has not been filled. So the goal then with that communications supervisor is essentially to create a hierarchy in the form of our communications or dispatch center, so that that individual is also working on the administrative tasks that are also required as the secondary dispatcher is taking in the 911 calls. So when a 911 call comes in, there's also databases that we need to be putting information into. And so it's a lot for someone on the phone trying to do all of that. And then there's a secondary person to aid in that. So that position is in of itself always been on the books. It just has not been filled. So now it's restructuring it, giving it the name, and then actually seeking to fill that position in order to aid in breaking up some of those administrative tasks that have not had the opportunity to go on within the communications center.
So will there be two dispatchers then, like the supervisor and a dispatcher on duty then at all times?
Not
with
at all
this, or-
times. During the majority of that day shift, I believe there is a call for two of them. That's where the supervisor would normally work, would be the day shift, because there's other administrative duties that they would be doing to aid the chief in whatever his directives are. So essentially they're operating without one, but that's also putting the supervision on the actual chief or his entity, whoever supervised them. It's now creating a hierarchy. So there's a supervisor within the dispatchers as well.
So we're creating a position, well, or we're filling a position that has already been created,
Correct.
which will put someone else on duty during the daytime. But
There's
you said administrative tasks, that means to do with the dispatchers. Is that correct? I mean,
correct.
because we're also creating, adding another administrative assistant for the chief, I believe, correct?
So
We have one
that-
now, and then we're going to have two
Correct.
with this plan, if this goes through?
Correct. I believe there's actually already,
That-
That is not an addition.
it's already been, it just
there.
hasn't been filled.
Okay,
Most
but
of
we're
these-
going to fill another position that has
Correct.
not been filled in the past.
Correct.
Okay, so,
It's not creating a new position. These were already positions that were there. There are a few modifications within the ordinance, specifically changing the title of our auxiliary unit to reflect our reserve unit. There were some inconsistencies in titles across the board. So again, as much as the comp plan was a cleanup, part of this ordinance is a cleanup to make it a complete reflection from top to bottom, every position that we would currently be able to fill within the police department.
okay, so if we're filling two additional police, well, the communications superintendent and an additional administrative assistant, and then we will be also filling additional police officers, correct, as we are able to hire them? Because we're trying to hire,
I mean, I think the department's been understaffed for quite some time.
yes. So is that all covered, or going to be covered in the budget? Because as we know, we didn't, pass the levy, so the safety forces are losing over $2 million out of their funding.
I can't speak to budget stuff,
So-
so I'll defer to the mayor or the auditor on that.
That has not been budgeted for because this happened after the budget had already been put together. So
Which I think lends itself to, obviously, the positions won't be filled if it's not budgeted. Is that the understanding that we had?
I'm sorry, one more time.
Meaning like the budget is going to drive these decisions. So if the budget doesn't allow for the hires will not happen.
That's correct. We do always, there is always, built-in buffers, just because overtime happens and other things happen that, will happen throughout the year. But again, as far as that position specifically, no, that was not budgeted for.
I think those are questions you're going to have to ask long-term, the safety director and obviously the mayor of the staffing priorities. I think it was quite clear that evening that the two captains' positions are going to be very paramount because those are going to alleviate everything right now that the chief is having to do and break out those lines and create the hierarchy. So obviously that is going to be a higher priority than maybe another position down the road, given the constraints of the budget.
Yeah,
And
see.
I believe that there was the former position was communications commander, and there was a period of time where somebody was in that role.
Since in the last 4 years, probably.
Yeah, in the
Yes.
last 4 years, there was somebody in the communications commander position that did a lot of the work with the implementation of the new Central Square program and also maintained the 911 plan with the EMA director and all of the reporting that has to do with the 911 commission. So those tasks had been done by somebody, but are currently being absorbed by other leadership within the police department. This is allowing that person to focus specifically on the task that they were designed to do. So
Well,
that
sure.
those other leadership within the police department can do what they need to do for
Certainly.
supervision of the administrative and operations side of the police department.
Yeah, and I mean, in a perfect world, if we'd passed our levy, there wouldn't be any question. We'd have plenty of funding for all of these. I'm real concerned, as you just talked about budget cuts for next year and then going into 2026, that we look, at what we can really do and expanding the non-patrol, parts of the safety forces. I don't know. We just need to be careful, I think.
I think your suggestion is duly noted, and we will take that into consideration when we look at what those budget cuts look like. Those will be looked at, and the work that they do, how critical it is to the operations of the police department, will also be considered when we look at those and prepare for the future.
I think the goal in drafting the legislation before you is to set up the structure. It doesn't necessarily mean that tomorrow the safety director and the mayor have the authority to come out and to fill every one of these positions. It's setting up that structure. I think those are the budget conversations that need to occur. Keep in mind, we'll have entities that will probably have to go to council because they'll have to be incorporated and have discussions. And there's also entities that are all union members here that are police union that will encompass those positions and whether or not there's enough in the union budget to cover those.
Yeah, I do want to put out a point of clarification on this. As this ordinance or as this has been brought forward, those positions have not been budgeted for. I do want to state that there is actually a communications center commander, which again would be a different title than what is on this. That has been budgeted for the full year. There is nobody in that position right now, or that.
Because that's now the supervisor title. So
Yeah,
it's
the
moving
title
the
change.
commander to the supervisor title.
Exactly.
So
So
bringing
that-
this
that
communication full circle is budgeted.
Yes, so to answer your question on that is budgeted, it's just under a different
Title.
title.
Yeah.
There is also, just to kind of give you some more information on this, there is a deputy chief position that is budgeted, and there is a captain's position that is also budgeted. So we have 3 positions in the hierarchy that have been paid for with the budget for 2025 that are currently vacant.
So
And
that,
similar to the communications role, the deputy chief would not get filled, but the captain's
but the
role-
captains will, so the captain and deputy chief that's been budgeted for will then hopefully be able to be, I'm assuming, the collective pot for the 2 captains that are being brought forth and requested.
I see. Okay. Thank you for explaining that.
Any other questions? Council, will remind you with 2 absences, we cannot suspend the rules, so this legislation will have to go to the first meeting in January, which is the 7th. Okay. Katie,
Motion passage, or motion to hold for a second reading.
motion to hold this ordinance for a second reading, seconded by John Motes. Motion to hold this ordinance for a second reading.
You made a roll call.
Yes, please.
Hedges.
Yes.
Tice.
Yes.
Blitzka.
Yes.
Hallinan. Oh, sorry. Moats.
Yes.
Lukasak.
Yes.
Okay. The ordinance will be held for its second reading. That will be on January the 7th, 2025. Okay. That's all the legislation we have, council, tonight. That brings us to new business, and tonight we have a communication consultant report that's going to be discussed. And the mayor has a guest. If you'd like to introduce him, go right ahead.
Thank you. Just a little bit of background for council. When I came into office at the beginning of the year and I was learning about all of the different departments and what people did and what their tasks were, one of the things I noticed that was split out over people throughout the city was communications, whether that's social media posts, newspaper articles, the website, all of those tasks kind of fit into one pot tasks. And so one of the things that I wanted to try to do was to put out more of a positive note on the city. And so part of looking at the budget for 2025 and looking forward was the potential of evaluating what communications look like for the city. This led to the hiring of Thompson Creative Services. And so the consultant is Mr. Steve Thompson.
Welcome to City Council.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for allowing me to be here. A little bit about me so you know where I'm coming from. I have worked in communications for the past 20 years, working with small churches, organizations, helping them repair their communications department. I've served as director of communications for many churches, creative director of communications for many nonprofits, and currently I get to serve as the interim director of communications and marketing for Ohio Christian University. So as Mayor Blanton and I were talking, we connected. She was telling me about the city. I've had a good year on the city. I've been with Ohio Christian for 9 years as their video photo person, and now I've stepped into this new role. So have a good idea of what's going on in the city. And I've watched kind of the last year, very much so, of what you guys have gone through, how you've handled it. And it's been a tough one for you guys. It's been a tough one to watch as you open your social media, and every news station is always down here. And so it's good to have a breather here. But I think what the year has showed you is that there's something lacking in far as communications and how you're talking to the media, how you're talking to your city. But it's also no surprise that your city is evolving and it has new opportunities and new challenges ahead of it, and some really exciting, I think, years as you're looking at what's going on and how your city is elevating to a new level. And as that's happening, one of the big things I am pushing is that your effective communication is essential. What are you saying? How are you saying it? And where is it coming from? So part of what I did with the mayor's office was I sat down with their staff and I wanted to hear what was going on. And I asked two questions. I said, tell me some positives and tell me some negatives of what's happening in the communications world. And we got a lot of negatives. It was a very exhausting negative day. So I want to highlight on some of the stuff that I was told from that meeting to help you guys understand where this is coming from. There's also a report that details kind of what I'm talking about. I believe it was printed out and handed to you. We're not going to go through the whole report. I think you guys can kind of take that back and read through it, but we'll hit on some big things. So as I met with the staff, I heard a lot of pain points of what was happening. A lot of the processes that were not there or were lacking or that they wish was there. And some of the things was this inconsistent messaging. The staff really felt like there's just a lot of inconsistent messaging when it's coming from the various platforms that you guys are using, your meta platforms, your social media, your website, different people posting, different people talking, and not a lot of coordinated strategy on when things are being released, how are they being released, and what are the clear talking points of those messages. And those were some opportunities that the staff felt was being missed, and that I think when you look at other cities and how they're doing it, it's clear that it is also missing. There's an increased demand from residents. We live in an age where we are always on our phone. We are always connected to social media, and so our residents are there. They want that information. They want to know what's going on. They want to know what the story of Circleville is. And that's where we are living. They're seeking timely, accurate information. And as the rise of digital platforms are happening and the whole staff is trying to navigate that, there's not one person to oversee that. And it's getting divided to everybody. And then also just huge crisis communication gaps. I think there's probably, that was a big theme that I heard, is that when crises are happening, there's just gaps of how the information is getting out there, who is controlling that information, who is holding that information, and how is it all happening. So that was a big thing that was happening to me, or that I was hearing. And one thing that happens with that is when that miscommunication comes out like that and it's not centralized, there's just lack of trust from your residents. There's lack of trust from your city. And then there's very big pushback. Personally, I was watching your social media when the fire happened at Ted Lewis Park, and all the stuff that came out after that, and then all the comments under that was not very positive, and it's a lot of residents kind of questioned a lot of different things. So I think you can see that. There was one positive, and I'm sad that she left, but the one positive everyone said was Hannah. And I was asked why, and they said, because she's the youngest. And so she happens to be taking a lot of that on, which is great. But that was the one positive that kind of rang from every department that I talked to. So as you read through the report, my proposed solution for that was, as I looked at the departments, is the creation of a communications department, and mainly the creation of a director of communications role for you. Someone who is going to hold the keys to all the platforms, someone who's going to really make sure that the messaging is getting out there and it's on the same plan and it's on the same time and everybody's around it. And really someone to kind of help start painting the narrative of Circleville in a different way. A few years back, New Albany created their communications department. And they went from a staff of one person to now a staff of about 8. And they have completely changed the narrative of their city. I met with them. I had a lot of insight with Josh, who's their director of communications, and what their plan has been. And they have worked hard to completely change the narrative of who New Albany is and really move past some of the negative stuff that was out there just 2-3 years ago, to really highlight who they are, what they're doing, and combat some of these messages. One of his principles is they look at the negative stuff that could be happening, and then they couple it with something positive to kind of hopefully steer away from that negative. So pretty good stuff there. And so part of this solution is, with a director of comms, you have centralized strategy. They're going to oversee your communications plan, and they're going to oversee that strategy on everything that you guys are releasing. You have public engagement. You have someone who is not only monitoring your website and social media and interacting with the public that way, but is also hopefully out in the city at your events, talking to people, capturing images, capturing photos and video, and just kind of helping paint that story. You have someone who can help you with your crisis management, whether that becomes, some talking points around something or some training. I think your director of communications would come in and run a monthly, bi-monthly media training for people, so that when these crises happen, we all are on the same page and how to talk to people. You also have someone who's working with your media, local media, and holding those relationships, and hopefully, helping the local media get the right story, get it out in a timely manner, but also maybe sometimes to call them in and say, hey, let us all hold for a second. And then just your digital presence. And this is all about your website, really. On that one is, the city website is not great. It has good information on there, but it's not very organized in a manner where someone can usually quickly access. So this person would oversee that in all your digital media and hopefully work that. And then, when you think about this, I know this is an expense and you guys are looking at creating something new. I think there's some long-term benefits to think about as you're going through that. I think this person helps you guys have transparency and trust with your residents and with your city. This is a person that's letting, paint that narrative and tell the story. You'll have civic engagement. You'll have a better city image. This is a person finding that great stuff about Circleville to tell and to put out there, to get some positive stuff out there. And then even proactive crisis management. Someone who's sitting at all the tables, hearing what's going on, so that they can get those communications plans together before it becomes a problem. So I really strongly believe that Circleville does have a compelling story to tell, and it's not over yet. It's just keep going. The history, the growth that's happening, this person will come in and help elevate that story to a new level. I think investing in this department, you and your city begin to build stronger connection with the residents. They see someone that actually is listening and interacting with them on a different level. And then I think it helps you prepare for the challenges that are coming, because the digital age is not stopping. And so this person is going to be your trendsetter, your person that is keeping up on those so that Circleville is always hopefully more on the side of setting a trend and not always just catching up. So I think that's that would be that person for you, and hopefully then begin to even build that department a little bit. There's a lot more in that report, so please feel free to read through it. But if there are any questions on what you've seen so far and what I've said, I'm happy to answer any of those questions.
Thank you very much for your information. Council, have any questions for Mr. Thompson? Great. Thanks for
Perfect.
being here.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for the
much.
report, and we'll take it under
Have a
consideration.
great evening.
All right, thank you. Council, before we go to executive session, we have a couple members absent. Could we motion?
Make a motion to excuse Tom Duval?
Motion to excuse Councilperson Tom Duval, second by Tom Klitzka. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And also
I make a motion to excuse Mr. Helen.
Jeff Hallinan, second. Tom Klitzka moves to excuse Jeff Hallinan, seconded by John Moats. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you very much. That leads us to,
President Keller?
yes,
I'd like to also make a motion that we refer the ordinance that's been on our table, the council table, back to the service committee for further consideration when the study, the Safe Streets for All study comes in. The law director would like to take another look at that.
I agree with that. Okay, is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Motion to take the tabled ordinance, refer it back to the service committee, seconded by Tom Klitzka. Let's do a roll call on that, please.
Hedges,
Yes.
Tice,
Yes.
Plitzka,
Yes.
Moats,
Yes.
Lukasak.
Yes.
Okay, that will go back to the service committee. Any other business before the executive session?
Is there judicial meeting still on Thursday night, or is that canceled?
He canceled it.
Okay.
The next meeting will be on the 14th.
All right, just making sure. Thank you.
Okay, Katie?
Thank you, President Keller. I'd like to motion to adjourn into executive session to prepare for negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment pursuant to revised code section 121.22G4 to include the city law director, the city auditor, and the HR director, and all of council, of course, and the president of council.
We're invited.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Sherry Tice.
Hedges,
Yes.
Tice,
Yes.
Plitzka,
Yes.
Moats,
Yes.
Lukasak.
Yes.
Okay, we will adjourn the executive session. We will only come back in regular session to adjourn. I want to thank all of you for coming. We will start the session once the room clears.